Hey, Drew, welcome to the SABM podcast.
Thank you, Scott. Glad to be on.
Yeah, so glad to have you on, and I'm excited for you to present to the group this month. And you're the CEO of Fortitude Ranch, and so a survival community. So the first time in 8 years, that somebody's been on the podcast to talk about a survival community. So excited to dive in and learn more about what that is and how you got started with it.
Sure. Well, this Fortitude Ranch is our major business. We also own an app, Collapse Survivor, and we started up an organizational consulting firm. But we've been in the prepper business, preparedness, survival, prepper industry for over a decade. And most people aren't aware of how many preppers there are. The estimate is that one-third of Americans are prepping now, but the first rule of prepping is don't tell anyone you're a prepper. So most everyone knows lots of preppers, you just don't know. And it makes sense. If you've got supplies in your basement or you've got a survival location like Fortitude Ranch to go to, you don't want your neighbors or family members who aren't going with you to know that because they'll be coming to you to ask for and beg for supplies, or worse, your neighbors might come and steal your supplies. So, again, there's a lot of preppers out there, have been for a long time, and they don't talk about it.
Yeah, and I think we all prepare, right, to a certain extent. Most people have insurance or casualty insurance for their business or life insurance or those types of things. But you're kind of offering a different option, and it's also like an option that it sounds like somebody can use today, like to go on a vacation or a trip or
Well, we call it collapse survival, and I should define what I mean by collapse. Collapse means really two major things. Number one, the economy isn't functioning, people aren't going to work. And number two, law and order is broken down. So if you call the police and say, hey, there's a gang going through my neighborhood breaking into houses, they're probably not going to answer the phone. If they answer the phone, they won't be able to send anyone because, the situation's kind of shot at that point. So we're a collapse survival business. Most people who consider themselves preppers think, oh, I've got, a day, I've got a week of food and, 2 weeks of water bottles stored. That I would call more rainy day prepping, for minor events. But we're designed to operate for a disaster like the grid going down, which is highly likely to happen at some point, which will take well over a year to get back. Under good conditions, it'll take over a year to get back. Our H5N1, there is going to be an H5N1 pandemic. It's going to be double-digit lethality. It's up to 60% lethal now. And when that happens, no one in their right mind is going to work. And people will be starving to death soon because grocery stores won't be filled up. And so law and order will vanish. And in those circumstances, if you don't have a place like Fortitude Ranch, a survival community that's well prepared, organized, professionally run, you probably won't make it. You definitely won't make it in a big city. And even most suburbs will be difficult because, again, there'll be marauder gangs forming, people trying to survive.
So yeah, walk us a little bit through kind of where you came up with the idea for Fortitude Ranch, or how long have you been working on the idea and building it, and yeah, just kind of like walk us through like how it works.
Well, as an intelligence officer in the Air Force, I've always been kind of, aware of threats. And I remember when the Soviet Union fell and they declared a peace dividend, and people were thinking, oh, we made it through. Now we've got perpetual peace ahead. And I said, you're out of your mind. The security situations are just going to keep getting worse, largely because of new technologies, bioengineering, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, you name it. There's many, many more ways for someone like you in your garage to create a weapon of mass destruction than we've ever had in the past. So I knew that that was wrong, that the threats were going to get worse, not better, even though the Soviet Union was gone. So I was a prepper on my own. And most preppers, they just kind of have plans for themselves, their family. Hey, I'm going to go out into the remote rural area, maybe go to my Aunt Jan's house or farm in rural Nebraska, and I'll try to survive there. But if you think it through, you can figure out that if there's marauder gangs that form, and they will, they're eventually going to be everywhere. And if you don't have a lot of people, a lot of guards on duty, a lot of supplies and preparedness, you're likely to become a target rather than a survivor. So I came up with the idea of Fortitude Ranch over a decade ago, launched it over a decade ago, but it's always been underfunded and difficult to go. We've got 8 locations now. Some of them are franchise, most are corporate. but we should have dozens and dozens of locations. We just don't have enough capital right now to expand. So that's why we're working with your group to try to raise more funding.
And walk us through like what a location is like, if you've got like a flagship location or, yeah, yeah, it's like
Well,
where are they? And
If you Google survival community, most of the time we're the first thing that comes up because we're the biggest and we've had massive media coverage, tens of millions of dollars worth of media coverage. So you name any major news network and Fox. I mean, you go to a place like Washington, D.C., you got the Washington Examiner on the right of the political spectrum. You've got the Washington Post on the left side. They both covered Fortitude Ranch. So we've been covered massively. So if you want to see Fortitude Ranch, just go on YouTube, type in Fortitude Ranch or Survival Community, and you'll find tons of videos and be able to see pretty much all of our locations have been filmed and are available to watch on the web. We have an overview briefing too. I mean, if you go Fortitude Ranch overview briefing or go to our website, fortituderanch.com, you can see videos we produce, but there's tons of media coverage of Fortitude Ranch. It's one of the major advantages we have. We think that Fortitude Ranch and Collapse Survivor are probably the two best brand names in the industry right now.
all right. And this is something, just kind of looking at your website, before, the call today, that people can utilize like when there isn't an emergency, right?
Yeah.
That, yeah, if you want
That's
to,
a unique advantage we've had is that we're not just a survival community, we're a recreational and survival community. So if you join Fortitude Ranch, you can vacation for up to 2 weeks per year for free at any of our locations. And they're in nice places, rural. Obviously, they're not in a downtown city. They're in rural locations. So the Catskills, for example, beautiful area outside New York City in the mountains there. West Virginia, we're surrounded by the George Washington National Forest. Fort Ranch, Tennessee, borders the Cherokee National Forest. Fort Ranch, Wisconsin is a former RV resort on a lake. It's just a gorgeous place to be. Colorado, Fort Ranch, Colorado is up in the mountains. Fort Ranch, Nevada is a high mountain desert oasis. It's in the desert, but where we are, we've got quite a lot of water and plant life and trees and sheep and chickens and cows. And then I'm leaving location off. What did I miss? Oh, Texas. Yeah. Forty Ranch, Texas, Central Texas, another nice rural area. So they're fun places to go on vacation. And again, you can do 2 weeks a year for free. But the most important reason people join is that and this is the official term, I got been bleeped on Fox News and elsewhere for saying this, but when the shit hits the fan, SHTF is the official prepper industry term. When the collapse happens, law and order vanishes, we turn into a survival community. And so most of our staff is like me, former military. I've got a lot of former Navy folks too. Army, frankly, is a better fit. I admit Army and Marines is a better fit than me in the Air Force. But my PhD dissertation was actually on a ground fighting topic. My PhD from Harvard was on underground nuclear defense shelters and field fortifications for NATO troops. Probably should have gone to West Point, but I didn't. I went to the Air Force Academy. But I studied tactics for fighting in a nuclear war and then defending in the nuclear situation. It's very, very difficult to do. But for example, I know that when you're defending behind prepared walls, and that's the big advantage we have, is we have not just places to farm and house and survive and store our food. We've also got compounds where we'll have defensive walls and cleared lines of fire. And when you do that, military history and studies and analysis show you that you've got anywhere from a 3 to 10 to 1 advantage over someone attacking you on the surface. And that, from trench warfare and the Civil War and all that, having cleared lines of fire. And, my target is you got to hit me in the head because I'm behind a wall and you're out in the open. It's just a huge advantage. And then for our members, all of our members are armed, they have weapons. But they're not all skilled. We have a lot of former military. Most of our members are not. But when I'm defending up behind a wall and I've got my rifle resting on the wall, I can get off a fairly well-aimed shot. It's a much easier mission than trying to attack someone and maneuver and attack. So that's the advantage we've got is we're very, very powerful defense. And so we don't think we will actually ever get in a fight with a marauder group. Marauder groups will definitely be out there, but they're going to go after easy targets, and we are anything but an easy target. We're a very difficult one. So we think we'll be able to make it through the worst collapse without ever being attacked because of guard posts, defensive walls, disciplined, organized members.
All right. And what are some of your most important maybe goals, over the next we're kind of finishing up the third quarter here, finishing out the year, back
Uh-huh.
half of the year. Like what are some of your most important short-term goals and then like long-term goals? Like I know you've been working on this for a while, but if you had to look over the horizon a few years, where would you like to
Yeah.
be?
Well, three things. One, we're raising capital to expand Fortitude Ranch, and especially to give loans to our franchisees because they also have trouble raising money to expand. Secondly, the Collapse Survivor app, it is by far the best app for preparedness. We use it to send out our threat alerts to our members. It's preparedness news. And the military folks will really like this. We run military style command post tabletop training exercises. So if you want to think, what would it be like to go through the grid being down for a year? Find out. Get the Collapse Survivor app. You can download it on an Apple or an Android phone and play it. It puts you in a situation. You get information and news, and you have to make decisions. Some of them are time. Hey, there's a marauder group coming at you. What do you want to do? How are you going to defend? There's a beggar. Do you want to give her food? And it's probabilistic. There's not everyone gets the same options or the same results that they do the same decision, which is, it's kind of the way it works in the real world. But they're a lot of fun and very educational to play. And this app is coming out with two really new features, really great features. One, we're going to have Wikipedia on our app, but not Wikipedia where you're going into the internet or going through your cell phone. If you get this Wikipedia feature, it's on your phone. So if the grid goes down, cell phones are down, you have access to Wikipedia via your phone, even though there's no connectivity and the internet's down. And then we've also got a map service that will guide you even if you can't connect to GPS satellites or the internet. Two new features that we're adding to the app, but it's already got tons of features. So we're working on the app. And the third thing we've got coming out is a book. Skyhorse Publishing, one of the major publishers, they've got over 100 New York Times bestsellers, is going to be published a book called Preparing to Survive in the Age of Collapse. And it's not a fun book. And it's not about survival techniques. There's a little bit in there. It's mainly about what are the foreign policy, government policy, military changes we need to do to survive in the age of collapse. And without getting into great details, I mean, I think we are going to be in a new era when you've got a situation where anyone can launch a virus and start a pandemic. Almost anyone can take down the electric grid, can release new weapons of mass destruction. That's 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 feasible now to do, and with artificial intelligence, the capability is just taking off. It's not necessarily AGI or super intelligence you need to worry about. That may be out in a couple of years where you have to worry about AI and computers and robots coming at you. There's a bigger problem, and it's a current problem, is you can use AI now to design a deadly new virus. It's being done. I'm confident of that. And not just North Korea and Al Qaeda and Russia and China have bioweapons they can release, but it's to the point now where individuals can do that. And so it's going to be an era where things are going to change big time. Our military can't remain focused on fighting foreign countries and armies overseas. That's going to end. When we've got people dying at home and we're worried about a pandemic and the grid's down, do you think we give a crap about defending Taiwan or intervening in NATO or elsewhere around the world? We're not. The military is going to be focused on survival, keeping people at home alive. So huge changes need to come in our foreign military policy and our government, and that book addresses it. Got a really nice endorsement by General Petraeus for the book when it's out. Got to work for him in Iraq, and we're really excited to have this book coming out. And the book's, it's not designed as an advertisement for Fortitude Ranch or the Collapse Survivor app, but it certainly does mention them. A lot of the scenarios that we ran on our app were kind of, good examples of what will it be like when you've got some of these new weapons of mass destruction coming out. How are people going to react to that?
Yeah, and it's probably definitely a topic that probably a lot of people just are, like try to avoid
Oh,
maybe,
absolutely
or
right.
for me, I mean, like especially the entrepreneurial minded folks that maybe, hey, the future's bright, right? Like, hey, we're creating the next business, we're creating the next thing, and then it's, then there's maybe, some realities of life, right? That maybe we want to kind of gloss over, right? I I think it's an easy topic to dismiss, but it's an important topic just with how fast technology is moving. I mean, I use Chat GPT every day, right? And you see the power of some of these tools. I use it in a good way, but I'm sure there's people out there using tools like that and more powerful tools, and
Oh,
not
yeah.
such a good way. So,
Absolutely. And then the tricks, the constraints they've gone and say, oh, if Chat GPT says you, how do I make H5N1 human to human transmissible? They can try to train it so it won't say, sorry, I can't help you with that. But they've shown tons of ways you can get around those things very easily. And making H5N1, it used to be called avian flu, it's now a mammal flu. Making that human-human transmissible has been done, mammal to mammal transmissible, and they did publish how you do it. And your comment about, I don't want to think about that. Most people, that's exactly right. That's what Nassim Taleb wrote about in his great book, The Black Swan, The Impact of the Highly Improbable. People don't want to think about these things. They ignore black swan risks, even when experts are shouting AI. I mean, the leading AI experts have been telling us for a couple of years now, AGI, super intelligent AI, is going to wipe us out. They've been saying that. But people aren't paying attention to it because it's human nature. You don't want to talk about that. It's human nature to ignore coming risks until they've occurred. And we've done that throughout our history. We'll do it again. So people at Fortitude Ranch will survive. Most folks won't, unless you're a member of Congress. You're a member of Congress, yeah, you'll be safe. At Mount Weather, they'll take care of you at our taxpayer expense. But the rest of us are largely on the own. And the other interesting thing is that the high tech execs, Mark Zuckerberg, Peter Thiel, Musk, Gates, all these guys, they've got huge survival facilities, underground bunkers. Peter
hmm.
Thiel's jetting off to New Zealand to survive. Mark Zuckerberg has this huge compound in Hawaii. So they know what's coming. They're prepared, but I don't just want high tech executives and, worst of all, government officials and marauders to survive. I want good Americans to survive. And that's the purpose of Fortitude Ranch, because we are affordable for the middle class. There's a place called Survival Condo, which is a wonderful facility. I've been in it, did some consulting for them, but it's for ultra high net worth folks. I mean, it's $1.5 million to buy your condo there. Fortitude Ranch is designed to be affordable for the middle class, so good Americans can survive as well.
Yeah, well, well, certainly the president, right, also has a place to go when shit hits the fan, right? And so that's a really interesting point that you bring up with that these, the tech billionaires and the president and, they have these built-in kind of places to go, in case of an emergency, disaster, and the average American
No.
doesn't, right? It's just not something that we.
No, in the book, Preparing to Survive in the Age of Collapse, I mean, I really go after our government, the irresponsibility of it. And there's a chapter that details 30 different examples of how government policies are, number one, killing Americans now, and two, setting us up for just a horrible disaster and a collapse. I don't know how old you are, but when I was growing up, there as a kid, there was the civil defense program. It was already phasing out, not being funded in the 1960s because you could buy more votes for reelection from other means than stockpiling food. But the civil defense program is gone. The threat levels are way, way up. The need for them is higher, but government doesn't care about that anymore. It's not an effective way for them to buy reelection votes. So there is no more civil defense program. It's been dismantled. So there's no food stockpiled for you and me. A simple measure we could and should do to make us better prepared to survive a collapse. And there's example after example of that. Plenty of, they're expanding at Mount Weather. It's in Virginia. When you look at it, huge construction going on there, big improvements in investment so that Congress and top government officials can survive, and not a damn thing being done for us. Another example I give is Center for Disease Control. They are absolutely lying to us about the threat of H5N1. The experts say, and when I say experts, I mean former directors of the Center for Disease Control say that H5N1 will become a human to human transmissible virus and will cause a horrible pandemic. They're saying that. What does the CDC say? No problem. H5N1 is low risk. We have no preparations to survive a bad pandemic. And we're not even being honest to citizens to warn them that your future is an age of collapse, repeated collapse disasters, pandemics, grid attacks, brand new weapons of mass destruction that artificial intelligence designs. We need to be getting ready for it, and government's not doing a damn thing. Not only are they not doing anything, they're lying to the citizens and saying, oh, no need to worry about H5N1. No need to harden the grid. We've known for decades how easy it is to destroy the US electric grid. Nothing has been done by government to harden it or even to warn people about it. There's a great documentary people can watch. It's called Grid Down, Power Up. Grid Down, Power Up. It's a professionally done documentary. It's won a lot of awards. It explains how vulnerable electric grid is and how government has consistently refused to take any action. And the reason is, number one, lobbyists, utility lobbyists don't want to do it, so they make big campaign donations. And then number two, the elected officials are afraid if I harden the grid, if I order a utility, hey, you've got to be hardened. You've got to be more resilient. Well, your electric prices are going to go up. Compared to the benefit of having a grid, it's worth doing. But if your electric prices go up, they're worried that, oh, now someone will run against me and say, Congressman X voted to raise your electric prices $100 a year, therefore vote him out of office. Again, our government prioritizes reelection. They don't do anything really to prioritize keeping us safe, keeping us alive. So yes, we got a great military. We can defend against Taiwan and Russia and overseas military threats, but that's not the real threats we face today and our future in the age of collapse. It's pandemics, it's grid attacks, it's nanotechnology disasters, other new weapons of mass destruction. So the US military is going to have to shift. The only question is, do we shift now to be better prepared, or do we wait for the first collapse disaster, suffer and try to recover from that, and then shift? My book argues for let's shift now. Let's make a lot of changes now and be prepared, not be wiped out.
Yeah, and I think when you're early on an idea, right? It's those are it's usually I'm just thinking of the Big Short movie. I don't know if you've you've seen
Oh
that,
yeah,
right? It's like
oh yeah.
there's a couple of guys that they made a lot of money off of the Big Short, and they kind of saw, the recklessness that was going on in
Well,
lending and
that's Taleb again. So this is the Black Swan. This is his
yeah.
most famous book. His other book, which he says is better, is called Anti-Fragile. And
Okay.
he talks about you need investments that when you invest in this, even when crappy things happen, you still make money. You need an investment that can survive a collapse. And that's why I tell people Fortitude Ranch is an anti-fragile investment. When there is an H5N1 pandemic, when the grid does go down, our business will still be alive. And before it happens, the disaster, after we recover from the disaster, we'll be hugely profitable and make a lot of money. I think most businesses will not survive a collapse. If it lasts for half a year to a year, most businesses won't survive. You'll lose key people. Your facilities will be looted and destroyed. And if you think your data backup is going to work, you're wrong. Data backup is designed for hurricanes or local disasters or short-term things. Data centers are not going to be manned during a collapse. No one in their right mind is going to report to work to keep your data safe when there's marauder groups attacking their homes and families and they're starving to death. Those centers won't be manned, so they'll be looted just like everything else. And so companies will have no data to recover, keep people lost, their facilities looted. And unless they're prepared, and that's what our consulting service is about, is making sure you can recover after a collapse, they won't make it back.
What does it cost to be a member of Fortitude Ranch?
Depending on the kind of accommodations you get. So if you can get what we call a Spartan room that's very, very basic, very small, you could join for a family, for a couple, you could join for, maybe $3,500 down. And then, for the two of you, about a little less than $2,000 a year in quarterly dues going forward. So it's pretty low. If you want a fancier room with a private toilet, you might be writing us a $15,000 to $20,000 check up front and be paying, for a couple, $3,000 to $4,000 a year in quarterly dues and annual food restocking fees. So it depends on how much you want to invest in your membership, what kind of room you want.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And what I guess maybe biggest challenges or people that are most valuable connections for you, for the folks that are listening, what types of folks can help you move the ball forward here with your
Well, as I
idea?
said, our major need is capital. I mean, the demand is out there. We've got franchisees who want to join and expand, but that you can't get a loan. I mean, according to the government, our industry doesn't exist. There is no standard industrial code for survival communities. So government doesn't recognize that borrowing money for it is next to impossible. So we're trying to raise capital, one, so we can expand our corporate locations, but mainly so we can make loans to franchisees for them to expand. And it's a very, very safe investment because before we lend to a franchisee, they already have to have their land and some buildings. And so the loan we give them to add new buildings, new Fortitude Ranch capabilities, will be safeguarded by a lien on their land. So if they default, they basically are going to lose their facility and we'll take it over as a corporate location. But the major thing we need is capital. I mean, the business model works. We've been profitable for 4 years. We just don't cash flow because our money is constantly going into construction as we keep expanding.
All right, Drew. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you today. And what's the best way for folks to reach out and get in touch with you and learn more about Fortitude Ranch?
FortuneRanch.com or collapsesurvivor.com for the app. And then there's our email addresses there if you want to ask for more information or check into investing or joining.
All right. Well, sounds good. And we'll put your contact info and website in the show notes so people can reach out and connect. And yeah, and congrats on, sticking with the idea, for all the years and expanding and growing. And I know it's when I guess when you're kind of early on something or, something sounds different, it's you got to fight through it. And, what you're building, I think will help a lot of people and keep up the good work.
Well, thank you very much.